what you're hearing today, of course, is if you need any further evidence that Bidenomics is working, look at the CPI. Ladies and gentlemen, the CPI under Donald Trump was 1.8%. It went as high as 9.2% under Joe Biden and the Democrat spending and the Inflation Reduction Act. 9.2%. We have raised rates 500 plus basis points in the shortest amount of time ever. We had 45-year high inflation. Annual inflation has outpaced weekly earnings growth. So if you want to talk about what matters to the people, okay, yes, you can say inflation has come down. There's no doubt about it. But we are being gaslit here with why it's come down and some of the trickery that's gone on to bring it to where it is. Is it good that it was softer today than we expected? Absolutely. If you're in the market, if you're in commodities, if you're in risk-on assets, is today a good day for you? Absolutely. Do you look at the DXY chart of the U.S. dollar and see it break year lows, and it's probably on its way to a significant slow move into the doldrums? Absolutely. Is that good for risk assets? Absolutely. But for the majority of people around this country, it means absolutely nothing. What means something to them is when you look at prices from January 21 to June of 23. All items plus 16.5%. Ones that matter the most to you. Let's look at them. Food, as of this morning, plus 20%. Gas, plus 52%. Electricity, plus 26%. Apparel, plus 11%. New cars, plus 20%. Shelter, biggest part of the makeup of CPI, 44% of the number, plus 16%. Transportation, plus 27%. Vehicle maintenance, plus 23%. Vehicle insurance, plus 28%. Housing, up 15%. Which is actually less than normal, but housing seems to still be the focus of the Federal Reserve. But I say again, annual inflation has outpaced weekly earnings for 26 of the last 30 months as you continue to pay the most insidious of hidden taxes that is inflation. How about the debt? That matters to you, or it's going to matter to your kids and their grandkids somewhere down the line. The debt has increased $1 trillion. In a year, Damon? In 2 years? In 3 years? 5 weeks. In 5 weeks, the debt has increased since we got the Biden-McCarthy Fiscal Responsibility Act. It doesn't sound too responsible to me so far. It actually sounds like it might rival the Inflation Reduction Act, which doesn't sound very fiscally responsible either. But I know Republicans will tell us, hold on, it's too early. It's too early. Let's get to see if we get a CR, and we'll see if we get to the budget, and let's see what happens come January 1st and starting in October. They'll tell us that. Let's talk about something that no one's talking about today when it deals with the CPI. How about the Strategic Petroleum Reserve?
Ooh, I remember that.
We started depleting it slightly under President Trump, to the tune of 57 million barrels. Sounds like a lot. Joe Biden has sold 291 million barrels from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which is supposed to be for emergencies. This is a huge factor in energy costs and its effect on inflation. A huge factor of keeping inflation down is what he has done to the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Shelter, what I just told you, was the biggest makeup. In January of this year, shelter inflation was 7.9%. As of this morning, it's 7.8%. And the Fed has done nothing but raise rates, 500 and plus some basis points. Shelter has not given in. It's down 0.1% in 7 months. You look at other interest rate sensitive components of the CPI, they have not moved down that much. And I just went through the list of the things that actually matter to you. when you walk in the store, when you fill your car up, when you go grocery shopping, when you pay your electric bill, when you pay your gas bill, when you have to get a used car. Now, used cars came down. New cars still plus 20%. So this idea that, let's everybody grab the pom-poms and jump up and down this morning. Again, if you're a certain niche area and you're in the market and you own Bitcoin or you own risk assets and you're in stocks and you're short in the dollar, it's a great morning. There's no doubt about it. But to 90% of the people who probably watch this program and 50% of the people in this country, they feel nothing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, that's called Bidenomics there, damn it. Because the Bidens, they're doing fine, just fine under this plan, and all their friends are too. But not you, the American people. No, you're paying for their incompetence. And it's insane that, I was going to ask you, what happened about 5 weeks ago? But you answered it before I could say anything. They passed the
Fiscal Responsibility Act.
They raised the debt limit.
$1 trillion in 5 weeks. So when you hear the White House today and Jean-Pierre putting tweets out going, do you need any more knowledge or information that Bidenomics is working? As if the rate of growth of inflation, which was a 50-year high, because the rate of growth of inflation is going down, well, it doesn't equal the cost of living going down to people who live in the real world and not live off the public dole their entire life and don't have to worry about where the next check's coming from and how they're going to make it from that check to the next check. Cost of living for most people in this country is sky high.
And I was going to say, that's the thing. Just because the number they're saying, well, the percentage now is down. It's around, what is it, around 4% or something for the inflation?
3%.
3% for inflation. But that's still that doesn't mean that everything is coming back to normal. It just means now it's hovering at that spot that is still too high. Way
Correct.
Too high. Because those prices have not come down.
Now the next question is going to be, is 3% inflation the new normal? Now the Fed will never say that. But it's hard to make the argument that we are all heading towards 2%. Given that we've just added $1 trillion in debt in 5 weeks. When you have the government continuing to spend and borrow and print and spend and borrow and print money like they're doing, prices will continually rise. And right now, they're rising at a rate of about 3.1% annually. So the idea that somehow we're going to reach 2% inflation, unless that's not going to be the target anymore, is not realistic.
And not only that, if you're not getting a raise to kind of offset that, you're falling further and further behind every month. Yeah. Sure, you're not falling behind by 4%, now it's 3%, but you're still falling behind because you're not getting a raise.
Good point.
It took from Daniel Horowitz has a piece today, and I saw this fact in it. It took from the founding of the country until 1980. From the founding of the country to 1980 to accrue the amount of debt we added in 5 weeks. I want you just to think about that for a second. That is an insane stat. From the founding of the country to 1980, we accrued as much debt then as we have in the last 5 weeks since the Fiscal Responsibility Act. How do we service this debt going forward? People talk about Paul Volcker in the Reagan years, what he had to do to break the back of inflation. He had $1 trillion of fiscal operating debt. We now have 32 plus some $1 trillion of debt. We added $1 trillion in 5 weeks. How do we service the debt at 5.2% effectively federal funds rate? Higher for longer is the thing we keep hearing. Got to keep these rates higher for longer. No cuts in sight, they tell us. As the federal government adds $1 trillion of debt in 5 weeks that we have to service at now 5.2%. We will spend more on the interest payments than almost anything else.